Hello everybody, in today's episode I'm going to be telling you about my new car, what I've been doing with it, why I bought it, why you haven't seen it, and why I am already selling it. Don't ever say we don't give you good value here at JM on Cars. So then, what is it that we have here? Well, in simple terms, this is a 2004 Jaguar XJ6 SE. It being a 2004, it is an early example of the X350 generation of car. And this was a very big deal for Jaguar. This is the first built on their then all-new aluminium platform, meaning that it was very light for a car in its class, making it a good performer and giving you everything you would want from a top-end Jag. But here in XJ6, guys, at a relatively affordable price point. The engine is the familiar 3-litre V6, as you would have seen in the S-Type, and it's a very close relative of the engine you'd have found in a Mondeo ST220. Only here, it makes 240 horsepower, courtesy of Jaguar-specific variable valve timing. This one is sat on just shy of 200,000 miles and has just a handful of previous owners, with one having kept it for around 20 years. All in then, it's everything that you'd want from a Jag. Why am I getting rid of it so soon? They say when life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade. And there's a couple of problems with that. First off, the British summer has now been rationed, meaning it extends to only 3 days in the calendar year. And so the time to make proper lemonade is fairly limited. Secondly, I've made proper lemonade. It's delicious, but it's also packed with sugar, and so not very good for me to drink on a frequent basis. I have been trying to slim down this year, and most annoyingly, I've actually been semi-successful, which means I need to find things that are both delicious and not mega calorific. And that's where Holy has come in quite handy, because when I want my lemonade, I can have it. Though today I'm going to skip the lemon and the white peach and the coconut, the pineapple and the pear, and I'm instead going to have strawberry and kiwi. And Holy is a nice energy drink if you want it. Well, this one is a hydration focused with electrolytes and minerals. They also do an iced tea if you're that way inclined. And all you do is you take half a litre of a nice cold ice water, as I have here, and then pour in the good stuff. Yeah. Oh, I've done a terrible job of mixing that. I have been having this for the last couple of weeks. Holy, unlike a lot of these other companies, actually sent me out the stuff first and said, if you like it, we'll have a chat. And I've just ordered my second box. It's quite good. Though I really must learn how to mix stuff properly. Anyway, if you want some for yourself, they're doing a deal, of course. It's JAYEMM5 to get £5 off your first order, and JAYEMM, without any extra addenda, to get 10% off any order. So if you fancy a nice drink that's not packed with sugar, this one's less than 20 calories, give them a try. Mix, damn you! Now, if you have been watching the channel for some time, you might actually recognise this car, and that's because my buddy George up in Scotland bought it a couple of years ago, when he found himself on the hunt for something that was old enough he could afford to buy it outright, but nice enough that he'd want to drive it every day, and with the hope that it would be reliable enough that, although it wouldn't do the same MPG as his old diesel Mini, it would ultimately work out cheaper to run. And when this cropped up, he looked at it and thought, yeah, I fancy a bit of that Jag life. It was formerly owned by an elderly gentleman who'd driven it for quite some time, but unfortunately, as is often the case with elderly gentlemen, he wasn't quite so good at driving it anymore, and he had a low-speed altercation with a post that unfortunately wrote off the car. Now, such was the value of this that he managed to write it off by breaking a headlight. Yeah, a brand new headlight from Jaguar was something like £1,000, and by the time they'd looked at fixing the paintwork, getting the part, having it off the road, getting the rental car, so on and so forth, it just didn't make any sense. So the car was written off and has a Category N marker on it, which if you do your CarVertical search, you will find out. Beyond that though, and the other cosmetic issues you'd expect of a near 200,000 mile, 20-year-old car, it's actually fairly good. The interior is in very good condition, and it came with one of the most comprehensive history folders I have ever seen. In here we have proof that I am owner number 5, and we have history dating back to, are you ready, drum roll, 2006. That's not bad. The car was only 2 years old at that point, and this is a lot of history, showing a car that has been well cared for a very long time. There is proof in here of some of the stuff that George has done, and it includes the likes of what we have here: oil for regular servicing, also some suspension parts, we have some antifreeze, we've got a gearbox service, we've got brake pads and discs at the back, a couple of drop links, tie rods, all sorts of various pieces, spark plugs, radiator hoses, light bulbs, all the sort of stuff that you would expect. ABS speed sensor, and I know recently he also paid out for a new alternator. We put a new damper on it. This has computer controlled air ride for that nice plush ride you expect. Here you go, just a sensor for the air suspension was £160. He had a wheel alignment done, parking sensor replaced, the power steering rack had a new transducer. He's looked after the car, and he's enjoyed it and put quite a few miles on it. And it's one of these cars that, chiefly on account of this, I said to him, George, as and when you come to sell that, I'd like a chance at it, please. And George is a man of his word, because at the end of last year, he came to me and said, James, I have had a couple of issues with the car. It stranded him once on account of the failed alternator, and he decided that actually he'd prefer to go to something a little newer that then had a bit of warranty on it. And I said, yeah, cool, fine, I'll have the car off you. How much would you like? He'd paid £1,500 for it, which is the subject of public record. We made a video on the whole thing, but that was when car prices were at their absolute lowest. Subsequently, he had done quite a bit of work on it, and he's a friend. So we agreed on the sum of £3,000. Unfortunately, with him being in Scotland, me being in southeastern England, and life happening for the both of us, this car actually sat up there for a good few months until I could finally get my hands on it. I then drove it down and proceeded to use it as my sort of daily, really, as much as I have one, for the next sort of 4 or 5 months. And other than an issue whereby overnight it just sits itself down on the air ride, which we're pretty sure we know what the cause of that is, and the fact that the electronic handbrake stopped working, the car's been good as gold. This has been what I term my London car. In other words, it is a nice, comfy 4-seater with a big boot that's fabulous on the motorway, and then because it's an automatic, also not a chore to drive around town. It's still relatively narrow, so easy to park. It's also ULEZ exempt, but because it has a few battle scars on it already, if I were to come back to it in a car park and somebody else had dinged or scraped it, I wouldn't be quite so heartbroken as I might something else. It really has been a very wonderful thing, and I've been meaning to get things sorted with it for a while, but I just haven't had the time, and I've enjoyed using it. That is until the other day I went to take it out, and it refused to stop beeping at me. Beep, 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 beep. You get the idea. It just wouldn't stop. Didn't really give me a reason for the beeping, but I figured, okay, I had said to a local specialist I'd be bringing it to them. This is the time to do it. So I did. Now, the beeping turned out simply to be an evolution of the issue with the parking brake. And the problem there is simply that the motor's getting a little bit old. They cleared it with the diagnostics machine and it went away. And it's been behaving itself ever since. But they did say to me, James, we can fix the other issues you have with the car, but we've given it a look over and we've seen that it does have quite a few others. And here is the executioner's report. So they have said to me that the offside rear brake is binding. Both of the outer tie rods have excessive play at the back. Both of the rear anti-roll bar drop links have play. The near side rear lower shock absorber bush has excessive play. Both front track control arms are worn. Both rear brake lines are corroded onto the flexis, and the offside front brake pipe is corroded. The engine also has an oil leak, which I had noticed because it's been marking its territory on my drive, and that we actually do know the cause of, or at least I'm sure we do. Apparently a previous owner tried to fix the rocker cover gasket with some sealant, and George himself tried to fix it but realised it's going to take some time to scrape it off and get a clean surface, so he did his best with it, but yeah, unfortunately we haven't stopped the bleeding. The radiator is also damaged but not leaking. The offside front fog light is broken, and the offside bonnet latch is broken, and the cable is stiff. It also, as mentioned already, does sit down on itself, but I think that's just the distribution block or whatever Jaguar call it, and I've already got one of those from Classic Reserve to go on the car. And they said, look, we can do all of this work for you. And ordinarily I would have said, yeah, sure, of course, get it done. I don't mind that that's going to cost me, not the value of the car, it's not going to be £3,000, but, you know, a significant sum. And then I just thought, I like this car. I really do like this car, but I don't love it. I love the XJ. I really love the XJR, but the V6 in the light blue, it's not really the car for me. I've enjoyed it. I've really, really loved having it. I've put several thousand miles on it very, very happily, and it's been a great companion, aside from the slightly creaky driver's seat. And although there is absolutely a place on my driveway for a car that just does a job, well, I'm a petrol head at heart, an incurable one. And even my sensible, ordinary, everyday car with 4 doors, 4 seats, or maybe more, I'd like to be a little bit more interesting. And that's not to say that the Jag is a bad car. In fact, it's fantastic. My original plan was to say in this video, right, I'm chucking it on eBay, 99p, no reserve, please, somebody just take it away. But that's not the right thing to do for 2 reasons. First off, whenever any YouTuber does that, some moron comes along and bids 10 grand for a car that isn't worth it. And that means that everybody loses. Secondly, I've driven this thing a few times this week. It's quite good. This is far, far from being a car that deserves to go on eBay as spares or repair, and certainly shouldn't go anywhere near a scrapyard. I managed to sell my MG ZTT to somebody fairly easily. I could have sold that car several times over, and this one is definitely in much better condition, and it's fundamentally a much better car. So, here's my suggestion. I think this would be the perfect car for some young person with time on their hands that's happy to sort these things themselves. And if you'd like to buy it off me, send me an email. I'm not expecting all that much for it. I know I'm not going to get what I paid for it. I'm expecting more like what George paid for it, possibly even less. There's a clue. And if one of my channel fans does buy it, I'll even chuck in a tank of fuel and maybe a couple of parts for you too, because this car deserves to be on the road. For somebody out there, this is going to be a seriously, seriously cool car. Might not be my perfect Jag, but it's still a Jag. It's still cool. So, yeah, hit my inbox, make me an offer I can't refuse, get yourself a cool Jag. I'm not pretending, it's fine. Still got to the end of November on its MOT, but I'm sure it's going to make somebody very, very happy. And I know both myself and George would really like that. I'll even chuck in the hat. There we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.